83 seconds. That is how long the silence lasted. 83 seconds of dead air in a room full of the most powerful people in the country. No coughing. No shuffling of papers. No whispered objections. Just the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights above and the faint scratching of a court stenographer's pen that had stopped moving because even she did not know what to write. And in the center of it all, sitting behind a polished oak table with both hands flat on the surface as if the table itself was the only thing keeping her from falling, was Pam Bondi. Her face had gone white. Not the kind of pale you get from a cold room or a long day. This was the pale of someone who just realized, in front of an entire nation, that the walls were closing in and there was no door left to walk through. What you are about to hear is a story that the networks did not lead with. The Sunday panels skipped over it. The front pages buried it somewhere between weather forecasts and celebrity gossip. But if you are watching this right now, you are already ahead of most people, because what happened in that hearing room changes everything you think you know about who is really running the show. I need you to do something before we go any further. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. This channel is the only place breaking down what they do not want you to see, and if you do not subscribe, the algorithm will bury this video just like they buried the story. Do it now. Congressional aides clutched folders against their chests and whispered into each other's ears. You could feel the static in the air, that particular tension that only builds when everyone in a room knows something is about to go very wrong for someone. They just do not know exactly when. Pam Bondi walked in at 9:14. She was 6 minutes early. That detail matters because it told you something about her strategy. She wanted to own the room before anyone else had the chance to set the tone. Her team flanked her on both sides, 4 attorneys in matching charcoal suits, 2 communications staffers with tablets, and a chief of staff who kept his hand on the back of her chair like a Secret Service agent guarding a principal. Pam Bondi smiled at the committee chair. She adjusted her microphone. She opened a leather binder in front of her with a calm, rehearsed motion. She took a sip of water. She looked like a woman who had done this 100 times before, and she had. Every movement was designed to broadcast one single message to the cameras: I am in control. She was not. At 9:21, the side door of the hearing room opened. Jamie Raskin walked in carrying nothing but a single thin blue folder. Not a briefcase. Not a stack of binders. One folder. It was the kind of folder you would pick up at any office supply store for 30 cents, and it was so thin it barely had any weight to it. He tucked it under his left arm and walked to his seat without making eye contact with anyone. He did not greet the committee chair. He did not shake hands with the ranking member. He sat down, placed the blue folder flat on the desk in front of him, and put both hands on top of it like a man resting his palms on a Bible before swearing an oath. The first 40 minutes of the hearing were unremarkable. Other members of the committee asked their questions. Policy questions. Budget questions. The usual theater. Pam Bondi answered each one with the same polished composure she always had. Her voice was steady. Her answers were long enough to eat up the questioner's time but short enough to avoid saying anything of substance. She was running out the clock, and she was good at it. Then, at 10:09, the committee chair said 5 words that changed the temperature of the entire room. Jamie Raskin is now recognized. Pam Bondi's chief of staff leaned forward in his chair. One of her attorneys uncapped a pen. Pam Bondi herself did not move, but if you were watching closely, and millions of people were, you would have noticed the smallest shift in her posture. Her shoulders tightened by a fraction of an inch. Her fingers, which had been resting casually on the table, curled inward just slightly. She knew. Jamie Raskin did not speak right away. He let the silence work for him. 3 full seconds passed. Then he opened the blue folder. Thank you, Chair. I want to be very precise today, so I am going to walk through this slowly. And I would ask that Pam Bondi answer each question directly. Yes or no will be sufficient in most cases. Pam Bondi nodded once. On March 14th of last year, a wire transfer in the amount of $847,000 was routed from an offshore account through a series of intermediary entities before arriving at a domestic trust. Are you aware of this transfer? Pam Bondi paused. It was not a long pause. Maybe 2 seconds. But in a hearing room, 2 seconds is a canyon. Her lead attorney leaned toward her ear and whispered something. Pam Bondi pulled back slightly from the microphone and said, "I would need to see the specific documentation to confirm or deny that." Jamie Raskin did not blink. He reached into the blue folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. He held it up so the cameras could see it but did not pass it forward. "This is a certified copy of the wire transfer confirmation. Routing number, timestamp, and recipient entity are all visible. I will enter it into the record, but I want to be clear. This document was not obtained from your office. It was not leaked by a whistleblower. It was filed in a public regulatory database that anyone with a login could have accessed at any time. The question is why no one in your department ever did." The room shifted. You could hear it. The shuffling of bodies, the intake of breath from the press gallery, the quiet clicking of camera shutters accelerating like a heartbeat getting faster. Pam Bondi's communications staffer typed something furiously on her tablet and slid it across the table. Pam Bondi did not look at it. "The transfer I just described was the third in a series of 7. The first occurred on January 9th. The second on February 22nd. The third on March 14th. Each one increased in amount. Each one used a different intermediary entity. And each one arrived at the same domestic trust within 72 hours of a specific policy decision made by your office." He paused. He pulled a second sheet from the folder. January 9th. Transfer amount, $312,000. 71 hours later, your office issued a revised compliance guideline that removed 3 key reporting requirements for entities operating in exactly the sector that this trust was invested in. February 22nd. Transfer amount, $519,000. 68 hours later, your office approved an exemption request that had been denied twice before under your predecessor. March 14th. $847,000. And what happened 69 hours after that? Jamie Raskin stopped. He placed both sheets of paper face down on the desk and folded his hands. He looked directly at Pam Bondi. Silence. She did not answer. Her lead attorney leaned in again. This time the whisper was longer. This time Pam Bondi's jaw tightened visibly. She pulled the microphone closer and said, "Senator, I want to be very careful with my words here, because the implication you are making is extraordinarily serious, and I do not want to dignify a misleading narrative with a response that could be taken out of context." Jamie Raskin nodded slowly. "I understand your concern about context. So let me provide more of it." He pulled a third sheet from the folder. "This is a log of deleted files from a server associated with your office. Not the public server. The internal one. On March 16th, 2 days after the third transfer, 43 files were deleted from a shared drive that your senior staff had access to. The deletion was logged automatically by the system. The metadata shows the deletions occurred between 11:17 p.m. and 11:52 p.m. 35 minutes. 43 files. Someone was in a hurry." Pam Bondi's second attorney pulled his chair closer to the table. The chief of staff behind Pam Bondi had stopped moving entirely. He was frozen with his hand on the back of her chair, staring at the blue folder as if it were a loaded weapon. "Now I need you to do something. I need you to stop and think about what you are hearing. This is not a movie. This is not a Netflix script. This happened. And the reason you do not know about it is because the people who are supposed to tell you these things decided it was not worth your time. I disagree. I think you deserve to know every single detail. So if you believe that this kind of truth should be seen by more people, hit the like button right now and smash that hype button. I am not asking for myself. I am asking because every like, every share, every comment pushes this video further into the algorithm and makes it harder for them to bury it. Do it right now. This matters." Jamie Raskin continued. "I want to move to the classified memo. On April 2nd, a memorandum was circulated within your department. It was marked for internal distribution only. It was not shared with this committee. It was not shared with the Inspector General. It was not shared with the oversight board that is specifically tasked with reviewing exactly this type of decision. Can you tell me why? Pam Bondi shifted in her seat. For the first time in the hearing, she broke eye contact with the questioner. She looked down at her leather binder. She turned a page. Then another. She was looking for something, or pretending to look for something, and the camera caught it all. Her fingers were trembling. Not shaking. Trembling. The kind of micro-movement that you only notice when you are looking for it, and now everyone was looking for it. Senator, internal memoranda are subject to deliberative process privilege, and I am not in a position to discuss the contents or distribution of internal communications in an open hearing. I did not ask about the contents, Jamie Raskin said, and his voice dropped half a register. I asked why it was not shared with the oversight board. That is a procedural question, not a substantive one. Privilege does not apply. Dead silence. 5 seconds. 7 seconds. 9 seconds. The court stenographer looked up from her machine. One of the journalists in the back row lowered his camera because he did not want the click of the shutter to break whatever was about to happen. Pam Bondi swallowed. It was visible on camera. The kind of hard, dry swallow that happens when your mouth has gone completely dry and your body is running on adrenaline. She leaned forward. I will have to review the distribution protocols and provide a written response to the committee at a later date. Jamie Raskin closed the blue folder. I have one more question. He did not open the folder again. He did not pull out another sheet of paper. He simply looked at Pam Bondi with the kind of calm, steady gaze that prosecutors use when they already know the answer and they just want the jury to watch the defendant try to lie. Between January and June of last year, the offshore account I referenced made 7 transfers totaling $4.2 million. All 7 corresponded with policy actions taken by your office within 72 hours. 43 files related to those decisions were deleted from your internal server in the middle of the night. A classified memo about the exemption process was hidden from the oversight board. And the domestic trust that received every single one of those transfers? It lists a single beneficiary. I have the name. This committee has the name. And as of 9 o'clock this morning, the Inspector General has the name. He paused. My question is simple. When this committee votes to refer this matter for a full independent investigation, will you cooperate? Pam Bondi did not answer. She sat motionless behind the oak table. Her attorneys were no longer whispering. They were writing. Fast. The chief of staff had pulled out his phone and was typing with both thumbs below the table where he thought the cameras could not see, but they could. The leather binder in front of Pam Bondi was still open to the same page she had turned to minutes ago. She had not moved. She had not blinked. The water glass to her right was untouched. The room was so quiet that you could hear the ventilation system cycling air through the ceiling ducts. 14 seconds passed before the committee chair leaned into his microphone and said, Pam Bondi may take a moment to consult with counsel before responding. Pam Bondi turned to her lead attorney. The conversation lasted less than 30 seconds. When she turned back to the microphone, she said 7 words. I will cooperate fully with any investigation. Jamie Raskin nodded once, closed the folder, and yielded back his time. What you just heard is not the end of this story. It is the beginning. Because here is what most people do not understand about moments like this. The hearing is the theater. The real damage happens in the weeks and months that follow, when the investigators start pulling on the threads that were exposed under those fluorescent lights. The wire transfers. The deleted files. The classified memo. The domestic trust. Each one of those is a door, and behind each door is a room full of more doors, and behind those doors are the people and the systems that made all of this possible. This is not about one person. It is about a machine. A machine that has been running quietly in the background for years, greased by money that moves through channels most people do not even know exist, protected by procedures designed not to keep the public safe but to keep the public blind. What happened in that hearing room was not a takedown. It was an exposure. The first crack in a wall that has been holding back a flood of truth, and once that wall cracks, it does not stop. If you have watched this far, you are not a casual viewer. You are someone who cares about what is actually happening behind the closed doors of power. And that is exactly why I built the 47 Club. It is a community of people just like you who want to be the first to see every new document, every new development, every new hearing breakdown before it goes public on this channel. The link is in the description. Join now because what is coming next makes today's video look like a warm-up. And speaking of what is coming next, tomorrow's video is going to cover the closed-door session that happened 48 hours after this hearing. I have obtained the transcript. Not the redacted version they released to the press. The full version. And I can tell you right now, what Pam Bondi said behind closed doors is the exact opposite of what she said in front of the cameras. You do not want to miss it. Turn on notifications right now. Hit the bell. Set it to all. Because tomorrow, when that video drops, you need to be the first one here. I will see you then.